Hey. Oh my God, your camera is looking so much better.
I don't know. Maybe it's where I'm at. Maybe it's my camera. I'm not sure. I'm at home today because, of course, I'm making brisket tacos. And, of course, to make a brisket taco, it's always best if you get it fresh. Because if you let it sit, what happens to a taco when it sits there too long, Tim? Actually, that's not looking horribly bad. Let's get a picture of your taco. It's not horribly bad. It's just not as pretty as you want it to be. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's what happened. Connect to our page. All right. It just told me it does not connect to our page. What the hell?
Oh well. No. So I'm actually going to make them fresh. I have all this stuff here. I even have a little ranch, cilantro, jalapeno sauce.
Okay.
So I didn't, because when I made the sauce, I didn't have the jalapenos. I didn't put jalapenos, but I did put the brine in here after the fact. So it's essentially ranch dressing made fresh, ranch dressing, added a bunch of cilantro, blended it, and then after the fact, added the brine, the jalapeno brine. So it's going to be a little different than it was yesterday. Yum. So it's a nice little creamy sauce that gives you a little bit of kick without giving you too much kick. If you put the jalapenos in with when you're blending, then it's going to give you more of a kick. And again, it depends on your jalapenos because jalapenos can be mild, but they can also be pretty strong. Okay. So the other thing that I'm making to add to it is my Mexican street corn to go inside because Mexican street corn, hello. You got to do that.
This was not meant to be a Mexican broadcast. However, we just randomly picked what we were going to do today, and it just happens to have tacos into it.
Yes. So it's not Taco Tuesday, but there's tacos in here. Tomorrow is Taco Tuesday. An idea for y'all to go out and get some brisket tacos. The brisket taco is a lot of work. I mean, it took me like 5 hours to make my brisket. It's not the taco itself, it's the brisket that takes forever and a day, because you get the chuck, and then what I did with mine is that I got it was like 2.5 pounds, cut it into 3 pieces, made my dry rub, then I put it into the big pot and I seared all sides. I pulled it out, then I sauteed the onions with the garlic, then I added all the other ingredients, which were I put in some beef broth in there. I put in all the seasoning, the leftover seasonings that I had used on the chuck, threw that in there. I'm trying to remember what else I threw in there. And then I deglazed the pan. Then I added the chuck back into it, covered it and simmered it for hours and hours and hours. It was like 4 hours. And I was turning it when I was passing through there, I just flip it over. Once it was nice and tender to where it fell apart, I tore it apart and then I let it simmer some more for like another hour. So it was a total of about 5-hour process. But it is like absolutely delicious flavor. It is, oh my goodness. And a brisket taco, truly, the way that it's assembled is that you heat up the tortilla in oil. You add cheese. I have the Tillamook, which is local mozzarella. You can also use like a pepper jack, or you can do the quesadilla cheese. You put it in there. You add the brisket. The brisket in there. You close it, and then you make sure that it's fried on both sides, but still slightly pliable, so that then you can add the corn and the sauce, or you can put the sauce on top too. And then I'm serving it with a little bit of refried beans that are also homemade with cotija cheese. So it was just one of those that I'm like, you know what, if I got this recipe and I was like going, oh my goodness, I made it my own, like always, because I always make my own. When I went to Safeway, they didn't have corn in the husk. They only had it huskless. And for my street tacos, I always like to cook the corn with the husk and all on the barbecue. And I couldn't do that. So I went to the Sunflower Festival yesterday with Maverick. and they had a Paloma catering. I told them I'd give them a shout out to La Paloma. Thank you for having my back. They packed everything separate. I told them no mayo because I had the mayo at home, but they made my corn and they gave me the cotija cheese separately. And then I'm gonna assemble it. So I'm like, hey, they saved me a lot of time. So
I know. We all know when it comes to tacos, I love this Fuzzy's Tacos here, and we have one here in Little Elm down the street from me.
okay.
But it's one of those things that there's a 50-50 chance if I leave to run down there to get it in time to be back here for the show, that
Okay.
I'm going to get caught in traffic because there's a big light that everybody has to go through two ways,
Right.
and I may take up to 30 minutes to get through that light. So like, I ordered it ahead of time, and I had it to have it delivered. My schedule to have it delivered between 6:10 and 6:20 my time,
Okay.
and it came at 5:40 my time.
Oh, that's way early.
Way too early.
Way early.
And I wish to God, I had some extra tortillas around the house. I could just redo them but I don't. I searched the house over and I didn't have them. So I will take bites and then I will eat the leftovers off of a bunch of crunchy chips that you dip on, and then you just eat them off as like a taco salad.
So I had heard somewhere that nachos are pretty much a taco that doesn't have their stuff together.
Taco that don't have it shit together, man. Anyway.
But the interesting thing is that I have cotija cheese this time. I was really excited because normally I put Parmesan because that's what I normally have on hand. And because they're a catering service also, they said that even they sometimes have issues getting the cotija cheese and they will use Parmesan when they can't get cotija cheese. So that does happen. So I don't feel so bad that I'm like, couldn't get it. And I'm just using Parmesan and it works.
Yeah.
And so, and then of course I got my tahini in here. So I have my street corn ready to go. Yep. And I added my cheese to my beans. And then I made my little ranch sauce here. That's like going to go inside.
So see, I just added my seasoning on top to make them a nice drip.
Nice.
They are a little, they're a little scrunched up. All right. I didn't get hard tacos. I got soft tacos. So,
that's okay. Mine are going to be crunchy. So I'm going to work on that right now. And so I might be a little loud. I'm going to make a couple tacos or I'm going to make at least one.
Well, let's talk about our drink for today, though.
I got to show you the brisket. I reheated my brisket. It smells so good.
So she's showing me up again. I tell you, I do one plate that's good, and all she does is show me up And
you know what the funny thing is that it's not as juicy as it was yesterday. Yesterday it was like all these drippings coming off. It can be very, very juicy. It is absolutely delicious. So I'm hoping I don't make a mess. I'm wearing my apron this time. Hopefully it doesn't bite me back, but I'm using my normal pan, not the other one that I was using. So last week I did burn myself, y'all. So, and it was because I was not being as careful as I normally am. So today it's like, I'm going to protect myself a little bit and not get burnt because it got me one in the face and two right here, right in the neck. And I had told Tim, I'm burning. So I put egg white helps tremendously with the burn because it helps relieve the bite and it also helps it heal. So it really healed fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work over here for a second.
We do that while I talk about our drink today. So we chose a drink today to do it because this Friday, as our wonderful National Day calendar provided to us by our lovely friend. Oh gosh, I forgot her name. Cindy. Almost had a brain fart. Sorry, Cindy. Our calendar showed that this Friday was Whiskey Sour Day. And I thought, well, we could do a whiskey sour this week. It would be a very unique drink to do a whiskey sour. So I left, and I've been away for a couple of days. All right. So I went down for a retreat with our friend, Craig Duswalt, and was down in South Texas at a ranch. I wore the wonderful, wonderful shirt I got from the ranch JL Bar Ranch and Resort in South Texas. Oh, sorry, I got a little thumb in my throat. Got some good old times down there where the guys are really sharing me some drinks down there. And some of the guys said they're going to tune into the podcast here. Bobby and Michael down there, the bartenders. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your support. But they actually, and I forgot, I knew it was a whiskey drink when I left the house, but I didn't take my notepad with me when I left to go to the retreat. So I completely forgot any details or anything I needed to where I had to do runs today to get everything because I couldn't send my wife the list because I wasn't back until late last night. And it wasn't until this morning I realized, oh, it's a whiskey sour. Well, part of going down to this retreat this weekend was a lot of us, brought some of our own alcohol down to have in our rooms while we're down there, and including Gladys and I's good friend, Craig Duswalt. Yes, I've gotten hooked on some good whiskeys, but on occasion, he gives us a good suggestion for a whiskey, and I find out he's got the taste and Gladys has the taste. I am just getting to this taste, right? Craig said to me, hey, Tim, I need you to take my whiskey back because he was flying back, not driving back. I was driving back. So I transported Craig's Angel Envy whiskey back for him. And I said, well, Craig, since it's going to be on my desk when I get home, it is going to be part of tonight's broadcast. Thanks, buddy. I just have to give a shout out to Craig Duswalt. And I got to say, we do really have to, Gladys and I do have to thank Craig Duswalt because we wouldn't have this show if Craig didn't introduce us. So that is one true thing about Craig is he introduced us, and he was part of he was a really a great part of helping us when we come up with this idea in the mastermind to do this as a show. So shout outs and kudos to him. All right. And if you don't know Craig, look him up, craigduswalt.com. Also check out, he's got a seminar coming up for authors and a healthy author summit coming up here in September. It's going to be on the weekend of my birthday. Just saying, of all times, he does it on the weekend of my birthday. But check him out. He's a great guy. He's taught us a lot on marketing. Really, a lot of the things that Gladys and I do, we learned from him. So anyway, shout out to Craig. We're going to take and tap into your whiskey tonight, Craig.
Well, it's so funny because I left the office. Of course, I'm at home today because I wanted to make tacos.
Yes. Homemade
and rub it in, right? And so I forgot my bourbon at the office. And so I'm like going, shoot, I wanted to do the bourbon. And I'm like, well, I have a rye. I have like 3 ryes. And then, of course, I have my little Maker's Mark that is a bourbon. And so I said, well, I'll just do this. And I pulled the Angel's Envy from the bar. And then Tim is showing me what he's going to do. And I'm like, I got Angel's Envy, so that's what we're going with.
Thing, man. Yeah.
We got great taste. So,
yeah,
great minds think alike.
Actually.
So I'm to give it just a little bit of something, I'm gonna drizzle a little bit of the sauce on top because sometimes that's like the prettiness that makes it looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
anyway, so tonight's drink is a whiskey sour. I personally went to liquor.com to look up the recipe for a whiskey sour. And I'm going to tell you some of the things it says it's supposed to be into it, right? It says 2 ounces of bourbon, 3/4 ounce of lemon juice. It does say freshly squeezed. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to use the handy dandy lemon juice that I always have in my refrigerator because I don't have any lemons to freshly squeeze. It says 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, which is something we should all keep on our bar. It mixes in with an awful lot of drinks. The one thing that it mentioned in here, optional on liquor.com, was 1/2 ounce of egg white. I don't know if you're doing the egg white. I'm not.
I'm debating it, and I don't think I will. So the egg white, traditionally, it was made with egg white, and that gives it a fluffy frothiness.
Yeah.
And if you do use the egg white, one of the most important things to do is that when it is in your shaker, you dry shake, which means no ice. So you
don't put ice in the shaker when doing this, and that's the step that it says. Step 1, it says to add the ingredients. All right, and it says in egg white, if using to a shaker and dry shake
which means you shake,
4:30.
shake, shake, shake.
Yeah.
And then what that does is that it adds the air into the egg white, which makes it nice and fluffy and beautiful. Then you add the ice, then you shake it again for another 30, and then you serve it. And I forgot to grab my cherries, so I'm going to grab my cherries. So everything's not in front of me today.
So, of course, I'm using my mixers and dripping them all over my desk as usual. So, all right. And a half ounce of simple syrup. So, and then the garnish, of course, the bitters. And of course, I have two different bitters that I keep here, the orange.
I do have the orange, and then I have the aromatic. So I'm going to go with the aromatic. Although I do have orange, I always prefer orange. I think I'm going
to do the aromatics myself on this one. So,
and so what I did with my tacos is that I added mozzarella cheese. I put a little bit of oil, put the tortilla in there, added the cheese, added the brisket, and then fried it on both sides. Made sure that it was still crispy. I then added the corn salsa inside with the green sauce on top for the garnish. And I do have my ice, so I'll do that. So I did not, again, I'm not at the office, so usually most of my stuff's at the office. I even reorganized my drawers and everything. It's like everything's ready to go. But there was a particular recipe that I found. I'll think about the website. They said to use maple syrup. So you can use maple syrup in your whiskey sour. And I'm going to see if I can find my... and the other thing is that a bourbon is milder than a rye for your whiskey sour. So you really could, depending on what your palate is and what you prefer, you could go whiskey, bourbon, rye, or scotch. I personally would never use a scotch for a whiskey sour, even though a scotch is a whiskey. In my opinion, a scotch does not belong in a whiskey sour. But bourbon is the most popular to use in a whiskey sour. Next is rye. So that's the direction I'm going to go. I am so glad, though, that I brought, because I have a couple of shakers, and I did opt to bring the shaker home with me, or brought it last week as I organized my drawer. So there's my 2 ounces.
I'm learning that no matter how much you do this every week, you still find out things that you're not prepared for. I gotta get another paper towel.
Yes, I do that, and it's like, let me look over here. Yeah, whenever things like this happen, we just say, okay, where is it? And we know we have it, so it's fun times. It's okay. And sometimes that's part of the fun, is finding the things. How do we adjust to what we have?
Yeah, how do you adjust? You don't have stuff like this on your. Yeah, think about that, guys. So
just adjust, and then that's okay, because that adjustment is what helps us be prepared or trying new things. So that's kind of the fun part. So I do have orange juice. Oh, excuse me, lemon juice. You could do lemon and lime juice. That is an option, and that's 3/4. And the other thing is that if you think some people are very sensitive to the citrus, if it's too much for you, it's okay. You can either tone it down or add a little bit more of the bourbon or of your whiskey in there. And then since I don't have simple syrup, I'm going to be doing the 3/4 of maple, the maple.
Mm-hmm.
And I might actually do a little bit more than that, because the maple is not going to be as sweet as a simple syrup.
Really? I would think the maple would be sweeter than the simple syrup.
Well, I'm going to find out
that,
in a
please,
moment,
so our listeners understand. Yeah.
So one of the things to remember is that maple syrup does go in the fridge, so that's going to be nice and cold, so that's a good thing. Serving it with the orange wheel maraschino cherry for serving, and then you can always put a dash of bitters in there. So the whole point of a whiskey sour is, 1, quality ingredients, and 2, that balance. It was first seen out in 18 something with the Bartender's Guide, is where it was first seen. So it has been around for a while, but it's not until more recent that it has become a little bit more popular. And sometimes people will do a whiskey sour because they want a whiskey, but they, what's that song that says can't shoot whiskey straight or something?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole purpose of the ice is to truly get it nice and cold. You could pour the whiskey sour over a large cube. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to do that, but I am going to add a squeeze of, since I still have a little bit of lime juice and it was all lemon juice, I wanted to add just a little bit to connect with my sauce. So I'm going to put me on mute because I'm going to be making a shake, 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 and it's going to be loud, loud, loud.
I'm going to listen to you shake. Oh, she can't. Huh. So I mix mine, and one thing I always love about one of these drinks, when I try to follow the recipe, I always end up with half a cup.
A half a cup of a drink. Do you put a little too much in there?
I feel like, oh my God, did I do it wrong? Rule number 1 on an alcoholic drink on the Like Your Way You Drink podcast. You can never do a drink wrong. Right? My co-host, I think will agree. You can never do a drink wrong.
You can't. It's just it depends on your what you prefer. And
yeah. So that being said, all right. So I had the retreat I was at this weekend. They had a great old fashioned, and 2 of the guys, you know what I mean, made a really good old fashioned, and it was tough to see because they were both competitors at making their old fashioned.
Okay.
Well, then the other bartender made it, and it just didn't taste the same. Now
I have that on my
But like, what do you do when it doesn't taste the same? All right, you can tweak it, right? You can throw it out and tell them make it again, right? But here's the idea behind it when they made the drink is every person has different taste. Truthfully, I think the 2 bartenders that made it really, really well and that I really, really loved it is I think they really love being bartenders.
Right.
Which is half of the thing is, you know what I mean? People make it with love, right? Just like you making the brisket tonight with love. It's, you know what I mean? You put a little heart behind it. It's why I get the Fuzzies tacos, because they're the ones that seem to always taste better. They probably have more heart behind them.
I think so. It makes a huge difference. And sometimes it's just that touch that the bartender has. When I was on the cruise, they had an old fashioned that was delicious, but when the other bartender made it, it was a little bit off. And so I would ask them, like, could you also add a little bit of cherry juice in there just to balance it out? Because it was just a little, there was something that was off and I couldn't pinpoint what it was. So here's my whiskey sour.
See, yours looks a little better than mine.
Oh, wow. I made it yesterday with
I think I put too many bitters into mine, but anyway, mine's a little more orange.
I just did one little shake in there and to decorate, you want a little orange wheel in there. I could have put a big cube, or you can do it over the rocks. That's the other thing you can do. If it's too citrusy for you, have them serve it over rocks, so that way as the ice melts, it tones down your drink.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now I have, where's my, oh. And I did add the green sauce over just to give it a flavor. The more that brisket sits, the more flavor it has.
Here's the bottom line is, you ever notice you can have a brisket with almost anything.
Oh, yeah.
You know? That's why I chose brisket tacos. We chose brisket tacos over, say, regular ground beef tacos. You can mix brisket with almost any drink, especially a whiskey drink. Yeah.
Wow. This taco is better today than yesterday. And it's just that sitting in the brine that has made it just that much better.
Yeah. Now, how did you cook it? You said again? Did you do oven or you?
Stovetop. You can do it in an Instapot, in a crock pot. I did it stovetop and just cooked it and cooked it. Instapot is going to be a shorter time than a stovetop, than a crock pot. Crock pot takes longer, but it could have been done in 3 hours. But I just let it sit. You know, you just simmer it. Once it boils, you cover it and simmer, and just turn that chuck, turn it. You know, because that way all the brine is in there.
Mhm.
And you can make the brine ahead of time, so that way the flavors really blend. You could put the dry rub on the chuck before you, like a few hours before you brown it, and that's key, browning it, because that keeps all the juices in, and it helps it cook from the outside or from the inside out, and just makes it super duper delicious. I'm gonna see if I can find
I reached down to get my laptop because one of the gentlemen down at the ranch, we were talking barbecue recipes, and he said basically what he does with his brisket, 200 degrees for 15 hours, covers it with a mustard as a binder.
Wow. Okay.
All right. But before he cooks it, are you ready for this? This is probably now I've heard this idea for a brine, but not. Soak it for 24 hours in Dr. Pepper.
I have heard that before.
He told me that, and he wrote it down for me to bring home. And he's like, try it and let me know what you think. Right. Because one of the things I do with my sauce, every now and then I make a batch that's sweeter and I put Dr. Pepper in it. You know?
Badbatchbaking.com.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Bad Batch Baking. Of course, I made it my own. I made a few tweaks because that's what I do. And I want to feel that I've put myself in the recipe, in what I'm doing. But that's me, because I truly enjoy cooking and trying new things. And this was the first time I was doing a brisket. So I needed to look up, how do I make that brisket? And when I went to the store on Friday, they only had like this 10-pound thing. And I said, I don't need that much. I asked the butcher and he says, well, we'll get it in. And I said, I don't need it till Sunday. So I'm good. He goes, we'll have another. So sure enough, they had it. It was on sale. So my chuck was like under $9.
Wow.
Which would have been normally like 25. And then the beans were the refried beans. Those are dirt cheap. That's a ranch dressing with cilantro, which I had, the jalapenos, which I had. And then the street corn, that one was the most expensive thing. Corn should have been about 50, 60 cents, but because I didn't get the I paid $4 for it at a fair. But they did separate everything for me because they knew I said this for the podcast. So Paloma Catering, thank you very much for catering to me and my needs, because they wrapped everything up and made sure that I got what I needed for today, which I only heated up half of it, not all of it, because I want to leave a little bit for tomorrow for my lunch. So, well, use it. I normally, you'll know, I've talked about using the jarred stuff because sometimes we don't have it available to us, or sometimes I don't want to spend $2 on a lemon. So, but in this case, the lemon was like 70 cents. And I needed the zest because I made a Dutch baby for the first time this weekend, also blueberry lemon Dutch baby. And so I needed the lemon zest. So I said, well, I'm going to buy a lemon for the Dutch baby and the juice is going to be in the whiskey sour. Truly, this was really yummy. And partially, I think it's the Angel's Envy. That is just a really good whiskey. It's not overly, sometimes the rye have a certain finish that are a little bit stronger that some folks might not like, but this one has a really pretty finish, absolutely delicious in an old fashioned.
Yeah.
I've had Four Roses and Angel's Envy in an old fashioned, and I think I like Angel's Envy a little bit more than Four Roses, although Four Roses is not a bad deal. Oh.
No, I think because I've done my old fashions with my other bourbons, and let's face it, all right, I got a deck of cards when it comes to bourbons in this house. It's just, I've got 50, if not more, right? Because of this podcast, and as well as always tasting out new ones. But when I've been out to places like that, like being out, it's always an Angel's Envy old fashioned that I get and love, right? And I could sip it fast. I could sip it slow. Something about an Angel's Envy, it always rolls down smooth, right?
I usually go. My go-to is a bullet rye, and I really like that because another smooth one. But definitely, Angel's Envy is something that I prefer. Because it's just absolutely delicious.
Is Angel's Envy? Can we get that everywhere? No. Is that an everywhere type thing now?
I think so. And I didn't do the research on it because I wasn't planning on using it to begin with. But it has. They're all about the respect and the traditions in a whiskey. They consider it unconventionally delicious, and it is 95% rye mash bill. So it's aged in charred white oak barrels, like other super premium. So white oak barrels. And I was I was at Quartz Distillery this Friday because I was mashing up some whiskey, and particularly.
Do tell. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little video that I did post some pictures on the website, on the Facebook page. But one of the things that Randy from Quartz Distillery was saying, they're in Washington State, is that right now barrels are really hard to get. It used to be a 3-month turnaround, then it got to 6 months. Now it's a year and a half out. So the barrels he put in that he ordered now, he's not going to get till 2025.
Wow.
Year and a half to get the barrels because everything had slowed down. And so he was able to still get, because he wasn't getting that many barrels. He's a smaller outfit. So he was still able to get them. But once after COVID and things started opening up, everybody started putting orders in. So in December, it was like, oh, it's going to be pushed out to 4 months. Then by January it was 6 months, and now it's a year and a half. So that's crazy. But they are finished. This one is finished in vintage rum casks. So after rum is made, rye goes into it, which gives it a completely different flavor. So it's a little bit sweeter. It's balanced flavors of rum and cognac is the flavors you're going to get. So it just comes out with those smaller batches. And it's just yummy. It's just absolutely yummy. And to see the process from the distilling of the liquor, the sour mash being put into the newer batch, getting that corn into that big mash. It's 500 liters of mash that's in there, and it's just spinning, and the pH balance, the all the everything that's being put into a bottle of whiskey is absolutely amazing to be part of the process. It's like giddiness. It's like, oh my goodness, I want to be part of the process. And I got to be part of the process. So it was good times. It was fun. And that rye will be ready in about 10 months.
10 months. See, this stuff is not fast being made, guys.
No. Well,
it's the aging of the alcohol that gives it its flavor. It's also the one part of the process that takes the longest.
And the interesting thing is that when you stuff all over me, when you use the first barrel, the whiskey is going to be darker, richer, because it's pulled the colors from the barrel. The second batch, if you redo it, it's going to be lighter. And it's not going to have the same flavor.
How many times can they reuse the barrel? Let's ask that, because a lot of people, our listeners, don't know about those barrels.
So at most 3 times, really. You don't want to reuse it 3 times the same barrel. Now, what can be done is that I was at Cascade Brothers Evergreen Pub here in Vancouver, up the road here. What they did is that they got whiskey barrels to make a stout.
Mm-hmm.
And now that the stout has been made, Randy is picking up those barrels to make another whiskey. So you got some residual possibly from the original whiskey. You now got the flavors of the stout in there, and now additional whiskey is going to go in there. Do you know how rich this whiskey is going to be? It's going to have a lot of flavors. So sometimes barrels are reused, but they're reused in a different fashion. So it's not like you're making a whiskey and then you're making a whiskey. It's you're making a whiskey, it then goes and you make a beer, and then you make a bourbon. I mean, there's different things that can be done with one barrel. So one barrel can be reused multiple times, but there's only so much you can do with it. And the thing is that a wine barrel, that one can really only be reused once, and it has to be reused very quickly, because what the wine does to the barrel is very different, because it actually seeps into the barrel, whereas the whiskeys just pull the flavor out, but they're not seeping into the wood.
Yeah.
So the difference between a liquor and a wine, and the way that it is being barrel aged, and the flavors are very, very different. But that stout, that it was, wow. That was a really good stout. It was 12%, and it was like definitely a sipping, very rich. I did post the picture on the Facebook page. That was very yummy, but it was like a very sipping beer that took me almost an hour. And when they said, "Do you want another one?" I said, "Absolutely not."
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good. One was enough to just go, I'm good. And it was definitely a sipping, and it was a hot day, some water in between to rehydrate. But I cannot complain about that stout. That was pretty yummy. And that was after going to the Sunflower Festival. Got time to relax and have a beer, because all they had at the Sunflower Festival was like PBR and something else, and then some wine. That I was like, no, if I'm going to spend money, I'd rather have a good beer. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Cascadia Brothers and have a stout that's been in some whiskey barrels. That'll be. And I was pleasantly surprised. Again, Randy from Quartz Distillery, he's the one that had told me about it, and they are in the same location that Mav's Tap House used to be in. So I knew the space was beautiful. They have an outdoor space, so I was able to take Maverick and hang out with him outside. Although with the fires going on, it wasn't the best quality air, and it was a little warm, but it was still nice to be out.
Yeah.
But I wasn't not going to go because I couldn't go inside. So I'm like, hang out with the boy. There was doggy bowls with water that he got, ice cold water. The boy was sad. Well, I will have to say that using that fresh lemon juice for the whiskey sour, I'm very happy with. Would I continue to use the jarred stuff? Absolutely. Maybe not in a whiskey sour, maybe in other drinks, which I'm okay with. But when all you have really is lemon juice and whiskey, unless you can't get the fresh lemon juice, using the jarred stuff, that's good stuff. It truly is, especially if you're getting a high quality jarred lemon juice, which there's some organic ones out there.
We always have, a good Simple Truth organic lemon juice sitting in sitting in our refrigerator. So, I mean, lime juice too, but I went with lemon juice, and I never thought I did have some oranges. I almost thought about squeezing the oranges, and making it out of oranges, but I didn't.
And a little bit of slice of orange in it will give it a little bit of that citrus. That's that.
Allow me to try while we are on camera.
Ooh, perfect.
So number one, I can pull a little piece of peel off.
There you go. I love those. They're perfect for little hands.
Personally, I can just take that little piece right there and just.
Oh, nice. Squeeze a little bit in there and throw it in there to give you some good flavors. Yeah. I think that would be good.
And then I'll do this with it to give me a little more orange.
Yum. Oh, look at that. Ooh, I love that, hearing it trickle down.
Yep. And of course, I always have a stirring spoon.
You gotta
Always.
stir. Otherwise, it's not going to be balanced.
Huh?
Otherwise, it's not going to be balanced. Oh, I want to get a picture. So hold on one second. Let me.
What, of me stirring?
And of your cocktail up on the screen, because yeah, and I do want a picture of you stirring. There you go. Love that. So cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
All right, gotcha.
Let me try it with the orange juice into it now.
See how you like it?
That sweetens up the sour. Orange is going to be a little sweeter fruit.
Yeah.
Still, it's pretty
yummy.
You can never go wrong with orange and whiskey. Come on.
Yeah, make it your own, folks. Experiment. You know, if you don't like it because there's too much citrus, then what's going to balance it out? Is it maybe a little bit less citrus in there? Maybe a little bit?
I hate to say this because I hate to do it. Maybe it's a little more simple syrup. Maybe it's a maple syrup instead of a simple syrup. Remember? Yep. Do you remember, was it not this last Christmas? I think it was the Christmas before where I made the maple old fashioned.
Oh, I was so jealous of that one.
That was a good one with that maple old fashioned because it had an orange, it had maple, it had a bourbon. Oh, it was so good. Yeah. You know, and that's where I learned to find different old fashions, you know. And I mean, and I go to some restaurants where I always am trying their old fashioned. A lot of places I go, I have their old fashioned. I'd rather throw in the trash than to drink it. But all right, there's a lot of places that I go that I'm like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to like that old fashioned. And I try it and I love it.
Yeah. I went to a little pub and I said, how good's your old fashioned? And he's he goes, well, we don't have the big cubes. The moment he said that, I knew that this guy knew his stuff. And I almost, just because he said that, I almost got the old fashioned because I knew that he would care enough to know what a good old fashioned is. And he was going to do his darndest to make it really good. But I didn't want to put him through that. And I said, okay. And he goes, and we only have that. I said, you know what? Then I went with the Moscow Mule and that was fine. But to have a bartender that knows what an old fashioned is all about, you know that they care, that you know that they're going to put in a big cube or they're going to try. You know, I went to a place I'd gone before and I was like, it's not the same. And it was a different bartender. And it was because I was like, oh, they didn't put the big cube. They just put a bunch of ice. My drink had watered down. I don't want to water down old fashioned. I would rather have just a few cubes. Yeah. Just give me a few cubes versus, you know, if you don't have the big cube, you know, I'll work around it, but don't, you know, give me this.
No, the way to do it. No, the way to do it. All right. If you have to improvise that way is you stir the drink, right, with a few cubes into it to chill it. Then you strain it over a new cube. But your new cube, all right, when you take your new cubes, the idea behind it is take your cubes, rinse them with water, cold water, right? And then drain the water off. Then pour your drink from the cubes you stirred it with over new cubes, and those new cubes won't melt as fast.
It makes a difference. And usually I'll say,
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've told the bartender, well, then give me just a couple of your biggest cubes you can find. Yeah. And so they will do that. They'll put the biggest cubes in the glass. They'll do their thing and then they'll pour it over. And then that's fine. Because I don't want melted drink, but I don't mind a little bit of coldness. And if a little bit melts, that's fine. Yeah, I'm very particular. I'm a snob, so yeah.
Well, no, let's talk about that because I mean, first of all, tonight we're discussing the whiskey sour, but my ice is melted, and this still tastes pretty good. But I only put, I think, 3 cubes in, right? So, but what are the drinks that it's okay if the ice melts in? It still doesn't dilute the taste that much. There are drinks that are that way, and then there are drinks that you want to protect it so the ice doesn't melt because it ruins the flavor. An old fashioned that way. It'll ruin the flavor if the ice melts into it.
Yeah. And with me, with the scotch, if they don't have a big cube, I'll usually have it neat, or sometimes I'll say throw in 1 cube.
Yeah.
Because that 1 cube, well, 1 chill it just slightly, but 2, it'll open up that scotch.
Yeah.
So a little bit of water, not much, just a little bit, like a dropper into a scotch. So if you taste the scotch and then you do a dropper in there of like maybe 3-4 droplets of water,
Yeah.
it'll open up the scotch. You got to give it a second for it to open up, and then you taste it again. It's going to be a different flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different things with different drinks, different, mixes that happened. You got to just play with it. What do you like? What do you enjoy? Sometimes I just want a neat scotch, and sometimes I want an ice cube in it. And sometimes I, will throw an Angel's Envy into it.
Sometimes, all right. I had twice this weekend. I had a couple different bourbons just by themselves. It's probably why I had a pretty damn expensive bar bill at this place. But anyway, I remember it was my old house payment I spent on that bar bill this weekend. Anyway,
so I have to ask, for those that become part of the Insiders Club, what do you think about, after a couple of months, doing like a raffle of everybody that registers, where they can have if they're in the local Portland, Washington area, or if they want to fly out, they can have a full day experience mashing some our next batch of whiskey?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we're going to offer in the Insiders Clubs, because that just sounded all right. And we're going to stick with the ones that you have up there. All right, because I number one, in Texas, I don't have relationships with the Texas ones yet.
Okay.
So I do have relationships with one in Texas, and is down in Central Texas, right? And getting in for their mashing process, all right, would take me a little bit, but it can be organized. So, but we're going to have better organization getting the first one in, probably with one of your Oregon ones.
And this one's in Washington State, and he would love to have the Insiders Club visit.
Yep.
He is so open. He loves having people really have a full experience of understanding and helping and getting their hands dirty. And he said, "You didn't get as dirty as I did." I said, "Yeah, I wasn't at the top of that 500 liter, with the mallet, literally stirring. So I was in the back with the small grain, making sure it went through, and getting there. And he was, because otherwise it stays on the top. So he was out there. So you can be part of the process. It's fun stuff.
So let's talk a little bit about, so you guys know, all right, as we're getting close to the bottom of the hour here, talk to you guys a little bit about the Insiders Club. A lot of you have been asking me questions. Well, Tim, I don't know if I can afford the Insiders Club. It's free to join. It's the activities that we do inside of it that are going to have a little cost, and that's just to offset our cost. I mean, it costs us money to put the event together, right? But we're not opening that up to the general public. That's only insiders get that. The other things insiders get is, all right, we're going to start doing twice monthly. Gladys and I are going to give you a list of what you're going to get, and we're going to actually go on a Zoom call if we're nationwide and be able to do tastings. You know what I mean? And maybe on a Thursday night. We haven't decided what night of the week it's going to be yet, but like, we're going to get together with you. We're going to give you all the ingredients. You get them. You show up on the call. All right. And it's no cost. It's insiders get to come to that for free. All right. The Insiders Club is free to join but you're the ones who get the invitations to get the rye when we get it made, the gin when we get it made. All right. We're not selling that to the general public. We're only selling that to the insiders who are interested. If you're not interested in gin, guess what? It doesn't cost you for anything for the gin, because you don't like it. You're not going to buy it. Doesn't matter. All right. But if you ever think that we're going to make a liquor, and we're going to make a lot of them, guys. We're going to make liquors. We're going to make wines. We're going to make beers. All right. We're only going to sell them to the insiders. But to join the Insiders Club, you have to go over to our website, go to LikeTheWayYouDrink.com, and there's a button right on there that says join the Insiders Club. And all it asks is you have to put your name and information, put your birthday in, because you must be 21 to join. That is the one rule that we must stick with, all right, in order to build an Insiders Club. So, how much we're going to be adding things each year to the Insiders. The Insiders are going to get something every year that we don't.
Oh, yeah. The gin and the first batch of gin and whiskey are almost ready. The rye won't be ready for another 10 months. We're going to have another batch of gin. We can do vodka also. There's a lot of different things that we can do. And if there's a special request, if you want a flavored vodka and you think that, and multiple people are asking for that flavor, guess what? We can probably get that made. Maybe we'll hook you up.
So yeah. So, and the insiders, if you want something made, all right, and we have a batch made that we can add the flavoring to them, and they can accent the flavor. All right. We will do that for the insiders. All right. But when it becomes available, we will start taking numbers. All right. And the bottles will be numbered. What'd you say? We only have 20 bottles coming out, right?
Yeah.
The gin,
With
is it the
whiskey
gin?
and the gin, yes.
Huh?
Both the gin and the whiskey, yes. With the rye, we'll only have about 10 bottles.
All right. So they'll be numbered. It's 10 bottles, right? Bottle number 1, first person claims it gets bottle 1, right? These will be collector's bottles because there's only going to be 10 of them.
And
right?
this rye that's being made right now, in 2 weeks, it'll go into the barrel.
Yeah.
It's going to be that lighter rye, similar to Angel's Envy, where it is going to have that nicer, softer flavor. It's not going to be the harshness. And I chose that specifically. And then we get to put the proof that we want. So there's a lot of things that go into the making of it to where we can personalize that bottle to what we enjoy. And then we'll get another barrel going probably in another couple months, and maybe you can be a part of it in helping make that bottle. Or make that barrel, I should say, not bottle, but there'll be about
we have to make it by the barrel, and it's how much, how many bottles we get out of a barrel. Now, granted, I will let you know, so you know, of the barrels being made, 2 of however many barrels are already taken for and spoken for, so you know. Sorry, 2 of them are already spoken for, right?
Exactly, because Tim and I need to get one each.
Get one of each, yes. We each get one. Now, if we lived in the same state, we'd share a bottle, but I'm sorry, we don't share. And separate. We live in separate states. We got to have one on each of our shelves. So, but anyway,
you can be a part of it. We will raffle off that ability to come out to Washington State and help make that next batch.
Yeah.
And that'll be in about a couple months.
Yep.
So it'll be fun, good times. And you get to say, hey, my hand was on that. You get to sign off. Yep. You get to sign off on that barrel.
So
that'll be awesome.
Those of you who have already joined the Insiders Club, all right. I know some of you said you're already looking forward to this, and you know what I mean. Those of you who haven't joined, all right, join. Now's your chance. So anyway, before we pass away or pass on for the week, all right, it wouldn't be right for us to first of all tell you to join the Insiders Club. That's the first thing we got to tell you. But second of all, we got to tell you the 2 people who put this together in their businesses that have put this together over the past 2 years now. All right, at our business expense, have been doing this podcast to help you because it's our love for alcohol, food, being foodies and alcoholics. I don't know if there's a name for that because we're not foodies, we're not alcoholics. I don't know. We're something in there. I don't know what we want to call it. We'll have to make our own name for it. Yeah,
we'll figure it out. Yeah. We'll come up with a good name for us.
Yeah. But anyway, it's Gladys and I put this together, and both of our businesses are the ones who support this podcast every week. All right. And if it's not for us, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast does not happen. It's not for our businesses. This podcast does not happen. So we are the 2 sponsors that run it. All right. As well as we've had Mary's Mixers. And if you have an alcohol or you have a mixer that you want to sponsor us on an episode, by all means, reach out. All right. And I think both either Tim or Gladys at LikeTheWayYouDrink.com will email either one of us because we both have those. Tim at Like the Way You Drink or Gladys at LikeTheWayYouDrink.com. All right, that's both of us have an email address. Other than that, let's start with our sponsorships. Let's start with you. Tell us about the insurance business this week.
That's right, Gladys Boutwell, Insurance by Design, helping small business owners with attracting and retaining quality staff through employee benefits. If you want to know 101 ways that you can provide benefits to your employees and it's going to cost you from 0 to a high budget, hey, somewhere in between you're going to fall into that. let me know. Give me a call. Check me out at insurancedesignpros.com. And this is my co-host.
Well, Tim Gillette. But I want to say, before we go into that, isn't open enrollment coming?
That'll be November 1st. However, one of the things that is happening is across the nation, people are losing their Medicaid. And maybe you shouldn't have been on Medicaid because you were making too much money, but because of the pandemic, guess what? Your state may not have allowed you to come off, even though you were asking them to and saying, hey, I make too much money. People are coming off of Medicaid, and open enrollment for Medicaid is whenever you lose it, it's a special enrollment period. Enrollment period for everybody else is November 1st through December 15th, although some states do extend it. But November 1st, I'm going to be going a little crazy. My hair is going to be all wacky. And it'll be our 2-year anniversary, and it'll be fun to still be part of that, because
it's something that they need to pay attention to, is why I brought it up. All right. It's, believe it or not, that's just around the corner, guys. It's not that far away. So that's why I brought it up today. So I know that.
Get on my calendar. Get on my calendar now.
Yep. So guys, my business is simple, easy websites. I know when we started this, it says simple, easy marketing. Yes, I was a business coach for years. And the number one thing that frustrated me was people were not online. So we went and created a website company to help you get online. We design your website. We host your website. All right. We do it very, very inexpensively. We do WordPress websites. So if at any point in time you don't like us, guess what? It's WordPress. You transfer it over to wherever you want to go and leave us. We don't mind. You know, if we didn't do our job, we expect to be fired when we fail. All right. That's why we keep trying to do a better job, so that you don't fire us. The next thing about it is we are 100% USA based. It is very, very tough in 2023 for you to find someone to be doing your website, and they say, well, yes, let my team in the Philippines or India do the work for you. All right. Because I can do it very inexpensively. That is not us at Simple Easy Websites. We are 100% USA based. You have a cell phone number for your person, and you can text them, hey, I don't like that word on my website, and they fix it. Third, we are a personal contact. Just like I said, we connect with the phone. We are not dial one to talk to sales. No, we're not that people, guys. We are real people. We have real conversations, and we're about getting your website making money. SimpleEasyWebsites.com. There is a button there to book a consultation with me, because, hey, I get it. Your website is not something you just want to order off the shelf. It's something you want to actually have some personal touch to it. And I'll have a personal conversation with you, or my daughter from sales will have a conversation with you, and we'll get you set up right. And lastly, Like the Way You Drink podcast. Like the Way You Drink podcast has its own Insiders Club. Go to LikeTheWayYouDrink.com, right? Click the button that says join the Insiders Club and become a member of the new club. Right now, we're 30 days old, right? We got a half dozen members, and look at that, man. We're growing, so gotta go. Yeah. So this weekend, and I've got to do this. Jennifer J. Hammond. I don't know if you know who she is. Jennifer J. Hammond. I'm giving you a shout out right now, right? She used to host a podcast and radio show on Sirius XM on real estate.
Okay.
And she had one of these things where one of her someone called in or something, I don't know, but basically she created this whole thing. When people would have wins in real estate, she would go, yay! And that became our new thing. So we're going to give a shout out to Jennifer J. Hammond with a yay! All right. Anyway, I just love it when you meet people who do great things, and that's what
yay! With the little wings in the back of the bottle.
Yeah, and one last shout out. Thank you to Craig Duswalt for letting me dip into his bottle of Angel's Envy before I return it to his house tomorrow. Appreciate that, Craig. Thank you so much. Oh, and thank you, Craig, for putting the two of us together, for God's sakes.
I know.
Anyway.
No.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week, where guess what? It's August 28th. Our next broadcast is Red Wine Day. Red Wine Day.
Yes, Red Wine Day is coming. So what red wine do you like?
Yeah, I don't know what red wine I'm going to, I'm not saying what I'm going to. Do you know what you're going to do?
I do know what I'm going to do. It was a gift from Miss Jenny Coulter. She's Northwest Medicare Advisors she's in Oregon, but the company is in Washington State border. We just crossed the river right there. And she sent me a little thank you gift. And so I got 2 bottles of red wine. And so I'm going to be opening up one of them. I've not tasted it yet. I will decide on Monday at some point, and I'll open it to let it air out because I think it's a 2020 bottle and a 2021 bottle, but they are red wine blends.
Okay.
So I wanted a blend. I didn't want just a very specific. I wanted a blend, and I wanted a story to go behind it. So it's going to be one of
I'm not telling you until next week.
Mean.
I know. All right, guys, we're over an hour, so we're going to say goodbye and see you guys next week.
Bye, y'all.